The route guidance will start now.
What's good? Snap Turtle in a Mickey Ficky truck on the way to the tilt.
Next left.
Got off a little early today. Yeah, got off a little early. So here I am doing my live, doing my on the way home live. So today I wanted to talk about the power of discernment, its importance, and do you possess that shit? Okay. Good question. I know I do. Okay. So let's start with. I'm gonna start with some political shit. Okay. I'm gonna start with the foundation and the birth of this democratic republic they call the United States. All right, which is basically just, an offshoot of capitalism. It's all about capitalism. Okay. Now,
proceed about 8/10 of a mile to Figueroa Street.
When the founding fathers, George Washington and them, were trying to establish a central government to oversee the states here in the United States, one of their reasonings were that, if you have a straight up democracy, okay, if you have a straight up democracy where the majority rules, okay, the majority straight up rules, then you are going to
right turn onto Figueroa Street.
You're going to neglect the needs of the minority, okay? So you take away the straight up ability of the majority to rule so that you don't neglect the minority, okay? Now, when this idea came about, and I want y'all to listen closely, okay? When this idea was established, when this whole thing was established, when that whole idiom was established, the minority that they were referring to was not the black folks, okay?
Turn onto
it was not
110 north.
The indigenous folks of this land that they call, the United States. No, those weren't the minority they were referring to, okay? They were referring to the minority. Let me ask y'all a question. Let me ask y'all something. What percentage of the population in the U.S. are wealthy?
Next left onto I-110 north.
2%, around about 2%. Okay. Now, this was the minority they were referring to when they said that. Now, they didn't say that outright, but if you look at it and you look at what happened from that time to now, you'll see that the ruling class, okay, the ruling class in this society are the elite, the wealthy, okay, and the people they lord over, okay, like me and you, the proletariats, the commoners, the poor, the peasants, we are the majority. So in order to stifle our power, they came up with this democratic republic wherein we majority, okay, a majority will vote and choose a representative to represent each district, okay? Now, so that's the deal. And that person that you choose to represent you in your district, all right, once they get into office, they can do whatever they want to do. They don't have to fulfill the needs of the majority that voted for them, their constituents, they call it. All right? So what happens is, when you have this representative that becomes part of a larger party, they are going to represent the needs of that party. And you're always going to have a majority, you're going to have a party leader, okay? That party leader is likely going to be wealthy, they're going to be elite. So at the end of the day, they're going to finagle and maneuver and bamboozle the people and move things around and make this happen to that, so that the need of the elite of that 2% are met before the minority. Okay, so that minority that they are referring to are the wealthy. They didn't want, if it was straight up democracy, then the majority of people in this nation would choose laws and legislation that would benefit the majority. Okay, so that greedy motherfuckers wouldn't just ride roughshod over us. But that's exactly what happens. What happened right before the crash, okay? Right before the Great Depression happened, okay? Before the Great Depression happened, there was a recession, okay? And so they used this recession, all right, certain elite folks that belong to certain families, okay? Like the Bilderbergs and the Rockefellers, those of the Trilateral Commission came together with the Congress, right? And they established the Federal Reserve. What you did when that happened, the Federal Reserve is a private bank. And they gave the power to establish the credit to establish, maintain, and to interject the credit of the population. They control that. Okay? So now what happens is that if you control the money that's circulated and distributed throughout the country, right? Because now at this time, we're no longer trading goods for services. We're using paper money and credit and bearer bonds and things like that, so that we have the illusion of having wealth or having something to our name, when really it's just an annuity. All right, it's one huge annuity. And what an annuity is money that does not exist yet. It's money that is sitting in some type of air bank that you can't grab a hold of yet. You can take from it, you can build up on it, you gain interest from it, but there's really no backing to it. So, and looking at this whole situation of the majority not screwing it up for the minority, I could discern from history and from looking at shit and looking at what was going on at that time, because no one gave a fuck about a black minority or a Native American minority or a Chinese minority. Okay? So I use discernment to understand that we are not living in a true democracy. That's one way that I use my discernment. Another way is with the media. Okay? With the media. Whenever there is some type of, disaster, let's say a mass shooting or something like that, or bombing, or whatever the case may be,
110 north.
I look at what the media is putting out. Now, someone very cleverly put together like a super editing job or something, right? Where there was a certain disaster that happened, and they put together everything all the media outlets said, okay? And every media outlet, speaking on this disaster, we're saying a certain line exactly the same. Every media outlet where reporters and anchors were talking about shit, they all said the same shit. So what do we know? We know that somebody is disseminating information to these media outlets and are telling them, look, this is what you're going to say, okay? This is what you're going to say across every outlet, all right? And that tells me that there's some bullshit going on right here, okay? Now, another thing that I want to look at, another thing that I look at is if, let's say, also in regards to mass shootings and things like that. All right, you'll have several mass shootings, right, where someone will see the same individual caught in several different disasters. All right, like the Vegas shooting, like several people that were involved with the Vegas shooting were also involved with the shooting in Thousand Oaks. Okay, and other disasters, what they call crisis actors, right? You will see these crisis actors at different locations at different disasters, and sometimes they even speak at each one. They talk to the media. They're giving that little sad story. So this tells me that whatever we're being told about that certain mass shooting or whatever is straight up bullshit. That's how I use discernment. That's one way to use discernment. Now, what you also get is certain people, let's say with vaxxers, right? And let's say you look at the documentary Vaxxed, or you watch their little show. They have a YouTube channel where they interview different parents, right? Now you'll have pro-vaxxers running around talking about those people are actors. Oh, they're full of crap. They're lying. But you can see when you watch them, you look at their interviews and the way they talk about their story, okay, and all that, and how everything is consistent. That tells me that they are telling the truth. Certain things that I notice about these people being interviewed tell me that, hey, this person really suffered a loss. This person really suffered an injury. Their child is damaged forever. And also, when I use discernment,
in 2 miles, the exit.
When a doctor tells me I'm gonna go visit a doctor, take my child to the doctor, and they give me a 5-minute spiel about why I should get my child vaccinated, right? And they tell me straight to my face, there are no side effects to getting vaccines. They are not linked to autism, all this other shit. But then I realized that there is a vaccine court that deals with vaccine injuries. Okay? In case you get a vaccine injury, you go through this court. You can't sue the doctor. You can't sue the hospital. There is a fund set aside for vaccine injuries. But this doctor just told me that there are no vaccine injuries. There is no side effects. It's perfectly safe. Okay? That's not linked to autism. But there is case after case, payout after payout from this vaccine court to people who have vaccine injuries. It's well documented. It's public knowledge. So what should that tell you?
At the end of the road.
What does that tell you? If $200 million or something like that is being paid out every year to people whose children were vaccinated and had injuries from it? Or what does it tell you when you have doctors, okay, that used to be pro-vax, that realized that these vaccines were injuring their patients and they stopped doing it, and they come out and they speak on it? What does that tell you? Okay, what does it tell you when they tell you, I did the research, I found out what was in these vaccines? Because when you go through medical school, they don't tell you what's in the vaccines. They just tell you how to administer it, when to administer it. Okay? Look at another thing. On the vaccine insert, it tells you this vaccine has not been tested for impairment of fertility, mutagenic potential
Proceed about
and
2
carcinogenic
miles
potential.
to South Van Ness Avenue.
So, if these vaccines have not been tested for that shit, how do the doctors know? Right? The doctors are telling me that you don't get any side effects or injuries from these vaccines. They're perfectly safe. How would they know that if this shit has never been tested for those things? You see what I'm getting at here? You know, you see the bullshit that you see through the bullshit. You got to see through the bullshit. When shit like that happens, right? And listen, it's getting much easier to fool the people. It's getting much easier to fool y'all, not me, because the more they do it, the more I see it. And even when it's subtle, nothing sneaks past my ass. And sometimes I might be overly paranoid, or I might be wrong. But I'd rather be wrong than I'd rather be wrong than fucked up. You feel me? So that's one thing you have to look at. I mean, and look at this. Okay?
Left turn ahead.
Another thing that I choose to use my discernment for. Wireless. Okay? Wireless emissions. Radio waves, radio frequencies. What is radio also a root word for? Radioactivity, radioactive, radiation. There should not, no more needs to be said about that, really, right? Because
Proceed about 2 miles to
we know that
South Van Ness
radiation
Avenue.
is harmful to humans, right? Now, it depends on the dose and the level. When it comes to wireless shit, there are radio frequencies. The higher they are, the worse it is. But every frequency has some effect, and some of them don't. Like, you know, my cell phone right now has relatively low frequency. Relatively low. All right. But in the future, by 2020, they're going to ramp that up. So right now, cell phones are at about 2 gigahertz, right? By 2020, they want to have it between 12 gigahertz and 86 gigahertz on the 5G network. So now you're operating on a millimeter wave, okay? You're talking about a larger frequency and a larger dose of radiation, radio waves hitting you. Discernment tells me that can't be good. That can't be good, all right? Especially when I know that they're going to put this Y-gig stuff out. Y-gig is going to operate at 60 gigahertz. That's the frequency at which oxygen absorption takes place. Oxygen absorption, all right? They know this. This is public knowledge. This is out there. So if oxygen absorption occurs at 60 gigahertz and Y-gig is going to run on 60 gigahertz, and we know that when we reach resonant frequency between two objects that come in contact with each other, they cancel out. That means that when these radio frequencies are hitting the air that you're breathing in, those oxygen molecules are not going to be absorbed properly, okay, into your body. If we have this knowledge, right, why in the fuck are they putting this shit out? If they've known since the 70s that millimeter waves interact badly, okay, with human beings and rats and shit, right? Okay, so they're gonna tell you a rat has a different physiology, right? That's what they're gonna tell you. So let's say they tell you that rats have different physiology, and this shit is not going to affect a human being like it does the rats. Then why do they use the rats to test this shit for human use? If the rat is different physiologically from the human, and
left turn
what affects the rat is not going to affect the human, why the fuck use the rat? Why are we using a rat to test shit that's going to be in human use. If the shit's not going to affect us like it's going to affect the rat. Where they do that at? Tell me how that makes sense. So I'm a I'm gonna shoot a watermelon.
And then right turn at the end of the road.
Because watermelon supposedly have the same consistency as human skull, right? But they really don't.
Proceed about 4
So I'm going to say,
to
if I drop this watermelon from a 6-foot ladder and it cracks open, you know, that's going to be the same thing's going to happen to a human head. If I drop the human head from a 6-foot ladder, it's going to shatter like a watermelon? Hell no. We know that, right? So no one in their right mind is going to use a watermelon to test some shit that is going to be for a human.
Onto Southwestern Avenue.
So why are we using rats? If it don't have the same effect, why are we using rats? I'll tell you why we use rats. We use rats because we're going to use a dose of radiation, right, toward the rat that's going to be on a scale equivalent to what humans are going to be exposed to. You understand that? That means that I'm not going to use the same dosage on a rat that I would use on a human. Exactly. I'm going to use a scale, okay? I'm going to scale it down for the use of a rat. And if a human uses it, I'm going to upscale that shit. So that really means the dose that they used on that rat to test for this radiation coming from a cell phone is lower than what a human's going to be coming in contact with. So I guess technically, yeah, it's not going to have the same effect because we're not getting that low ass dosage. We're getting a higher dosage. Do you feel me? So discernment tells me that if the shit, if cell phone radiation, okay, if cell phone radiation sterilized rat was strapped to a cell phone, okay, for 15 minutes a day, or however long it was, okay, for how many hours, for 15 days, and they lost a large amount of eggs. Well, guess what? Humans use cell phones a lot longer than that. Cell phones are attached to our hip. They're always on our person, right? So we get way higher dosage than a rat does. Okay? Now, there are certain variables, of course, but this is what I'm saying.
In a quarter of a mile,
We have to, we don't even have to go that deep with it. All we have to do is call bullshit when they say, oh, it's not going to have the same effect on a rat as it does on a human. You're lying because you're using a rat to test the shit so that you can see how it's going to affect the human. Because you can't just test on a human right out. You can't do that. It's against certain laws, right? This is the type of shit I look at, man. It's just like I look at this. If you know, right? If you know how condensation works, okay? If you've ever been out in the cold.
You have arrived at your destination. The route guidance
if you ever
is
been
now
out
finished.
in the cold weather, like say in the snow. I've been out in the snow, so I'm qualified to speak on this. If I'm out in the snow and I'm breathing, and of course my breath is going to be a lot warmer than the atmosphere where it's snowing, right? If I breathe out, you'll see a condensation trail coming out from my mouth. Or you'll see condensation coming out. Now, let's say I took in a deep breath and I started walking and I breathed out slowly, real slow, and walked maybe like 20, 30 yards. Am I going to see a big ass condensation trail trailing behind me? And is it going to stay in that trail for hours and hours? Is it going to spread out and form a cloud that they call a cirrus cloud? So can I form a cirrus cloud with my breath in the cold? Let me know. Let's say a car. A car is constantly spewing out condensation, right? When that heater's going. You drive that car 20 miles, are you going to see a 20-mile fucking trail? Nah, man. Nah. I don't care how large it is. Now, it's a different situation up there, right? It's not the same type of air as down here. Okay? But it's not really that much different. So that tells me when I see these trails that they spray up in the air, right? And it's a long ass trail from horizon to horizon. And it stays up there for hours and hours. And I come out later and I see the shit had spread out and formed a cirrus cloud, they call it. And it's not necessarily white. And they have all these trails crisscrossing across the sky in every which direction. Am I going to believe that that's a condensation trail? Or if I know that they have been messing with weather modification, okay, they actually came up with it. They came up with the idea in the late 1800s, right? And they started putting it into practice in about the 20s, 30s, or 40s. And then they started really spraying the sky since the 80s. And they have a patent on these chemtrails, all right? Now, if I look up and I see that trail, and I use my discernment, if I say, you know what? I don't think that's a condensation trail, because contrails shouldn't last that long. If you ever seen a plane write somebody's name in the sky or something for their birthday or whatever, you'll see it does not last long. So when I look up at the sky and I see these contrails and the planet's getting warmer and warmer and warmer, right? The planet there's supposed to be global warming. This is another thing. There's supposed to be global warming, right? Caused by CO2 emissions, right? CO2 emissions. Cars, they give off CO2 emission and water vapor, right? Humans, we give off CO2 emissions and water vapor. So we give off CO2. Cars give off CO2. Plants need CO2 to grow, and sunlight. And ever since they started outlawing leaded gas, the air quality has been a lot cleaner, okay? As a matter of fact, when I looked at the Weather Channel, I saw that the air quality in Cali is excellent, or in my part of Cali is excellent. But they will continue to tell you that the carbon footprint being left by human activity is much too great. Even though the air quality has gotten better over the last 30, 40 years since they stopped using unleaded gas. This is what you want to tell me? This is what I'm hearing. This is what I know. This is what I look up. This is what I see. Tell me how that worked. So, if the air quality is better, how is CO2 emissions causing global warming? If plants eat CO2 and together with photosynthesis go through the Kelvin cycle and grow and release oxygen, how is it that CO2 is warming the planet? Can you tell me this? But one thing we do know is when they spray these particulates in the sky, it's designed to reflect the sunlight back out into space, right? But we do know also that what happens is at night, all the heat that was being absorbed during the day can't get released back out into the atmosphere and out into space. So these trails that create these formations, right, that are designed to reflect the sunlight back out into space, is blocking the precious UV rays that are supposed to feed the plants, that give energy to the plants. Okay, along with CO2. We know that. And it traps in heat at night. So the nights become warmer. Okay? The nights become warmer and warmer and warmer as time goes by because they keep spraying the sky and that heat cannot be released. You're forming a high pressure dome that keeps moisture out, right? Clouds from coming in that will drop rain, and it keeps in that heat at night. If we know this, and we know our CO2 is being absorbed, and we know that air quality has gotten better since leaded gas was outlawed, what can we say is actually called? What can we say about that? But now they have what you call CO2 sequestration getting ready to pop. What's CO2 sequestration? Well, they're going to use these huge machines, right? They're going to burrow deep down in the earth, okay? Deep down into the earth. Then they're going to suck out the CO2 from the atmosphere. They're going to suck all the CO2 out. And they're going to send that shit deep in the ground to form rock permanently. Because of the carbon footprint. Do you know what one of the building blocks of life is? Life, period. Not just human life. Life, period. Carbon, nitrogen, hydrogen, phosphorus, sulfur. These are the things that make life possible. These are building blocks for life. They want to take one of these building blocks, right? They want to take it from the sky. They want to take our breath. They want to take the car's emissions. They want to take plant food. Plant food. CO2. We know that CO2 is plant food. They want to take plant food from the sky, suck it up, put it in the ground. They want to spray the air. They want to spray the stratosphere or the atmosphere 45,000 feet, mind you. 45,000 feet. Now, this is what I want y'all to do. Because if you don't spray it at 45,000 feet, supposedly, those particulates won't stay up in the air like that. Well, the particulates they spray now are bonded to sulfur. Okay? And when they irradiate it, the sulfur helps it stay in the air. Okay? Now, they want to take the CO2, the plant food, from the sky. They want to bury it underground, turn it into rock, and let it remain there permanently. They want to spray the sky with nanoparticulates, okay, that are going to reflect the sunlight back out into space, preventing the trees from absorbing photons to perform photosynthesis. Not only that, but what else is happening? What else do we need for life? Water. What happens when they spray these particulates? Okay, heat up these particulates, form a high pressure dome that prevents rain clouds from coming over into that area. So what are we missing so far? What are we low on? What are they going to control? What are they controlling now? The flow of water, photons, CO2. Plants need all that to grow and to live and to provide us with much needed oxygen that they are knocking down with the 5G and the Y gig at 60 gigahertz. Right? Is that what's happening? Discernment. That's what I discern. This is what I'm thinking about here. Now all of a sudden, we can't breathe oxygen properly. We can't absorb the oxygen properly, right? The plants, once they get this CO2 sequestration going, will be lacking CO2. We will be lacking the oxygen to breathe in for our cells to absorb and to release CO2, because that's the waste product of our cells. See, it's a symbiotic relationship that we have with these trees and these plants. We breathe in oxygen that they provide, and then our cells release the waste of CO2 into the air for our plants to absorb. The much needed UV rays, right, coming to feed the plants, right, to give photons to the plants and to activate the enzymic process in the human body known as vitamin D. All of a sudden, that's going to be cut off. We're going to get less of that. Now, one thing they are saying, though, is that the hole in the ozone layer is allowing UVC to come down and reach the surface of the planet, which is like the worst level of the spectrum. That's one thing they use to get this going, to get people to think that, oh, we need to get this shit cracking, or else our skin's gonna burn off, and so therefore we need to reflect the sunlight back out. So that's one thing they're doing, even though we know that at that level, near the what they call that thing that covers the planet, I forgot what it's called. Anyway, so at certain level, the oxygen gets hit. Oxygen up at that level gets hit by sunlight, right? And the O2 splits into O3. 3 oxygen molecules bonded together. So the 2 oxygen molecules form a third molecule bonded together from interaction with the sunlight at a certain level. Okay, there's other chemical processes going on. That's what the ozone layer comes from. O3 is constantly being produced at a certain level. But there's a hole in it? What does that even mean? There's a hole in the ozone layer. So if the ozone layer covers the entire Earth, there's a hole in one spot somewhere. And so if you go to that spot of the Earth and there's an ozone layer above you, you're gonna fry. You're gonna spontaneously combust. I don't know. Tell me what a hole in the ozone layer is. Slow night, people. I know. Well, I'm home. And I have some shit to do online for work. And I just found out that gotta get rid of this too. So I can't have none of this on my face. Oh well, I look younger. You know, black don't crack. Look at that. Woo! Look at that. Nice skin from the vitamin D. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, you know, I'm just fucking around with y'all, man. Discernment. Very important. All right. I might get back at y'all tomorrow. I don't know. We'll see. Might take me a little break. Take a little break and focus on other shit. You know, we'll see about that. All right. So I'll holler at y'all when I holler at y'all. All right. Peace out.